All right, let's get into it, guys. Welcome everybody to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we're joined by Brett from The Light Factory, a video production company based out of Calgary that focuses on creating video for brands and arts. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's dive right into it. One thing we typically like to do at the beginning is kind of hear a little bit about your background. You know, how you got into the business of video production and how you've gotten to where you are now.
I guess I technically started. We started our business in 2014. So I own the company with another guy named Brett, which has been our biggest marketing win ever because everyone just refers to us as the Bretts. They have no idea what our company name is.
You should have just called it the Bretts.
I seriously,
I was gonna ask if you were brothers because when I noticed that on the website, I was wondering, this can't be that they don't look similar.
But how weird would it be if they? How weird would it be if they were brothers and their parents just called them both by the same name?
I thought it was a last name at first.
Oh yeah, no. So we met in university, went to the University of Lethbridge, and down there was a fine arts program called New Media. So this covered a bit of film, a bit of art, a bit of graphic design, animation, all that stuff. It was a liberal arts degree, so you had to do some fun history courses and animal psychology and all that stuff to fill up the degree. And both of us focused on as much film as we could in that program. And we did a short film project and other kind of university projects the last couple of years of school. And very organically out of school, we jumped into doing some short films. So Brett got a government grant and we shot a short a couple years out of school that did quite well. And from there, it was quite organic. Like he was working at a bar at a time. And this was our first corporate gig. We were asked to do a kind of a cooking competition video. This was in 2012. So we did that. We thought it was pretty cool. And from there, doing part-time work and getting slowly through word of mouth, getting more and more projects on the go, very organically became a company. It was like, okay, we're actually gathering clients. We're getting computers and learning how to edit and getting cameras. And it just kind of slowly grew from there. And 2014, we officially incorporated. And again, it's just kind of been a steady growth up until now.
So you guys didn't exactly come with the decision right from the beginning. All right, we're going to create a production company and this is what we're going to do over the next few years. It just kind of progressively went into that direction. So I guess you guys were just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, there's never really been that big of a huge goal set on what the company would be. I think, especially the time that we started, like in 2012 to 2014, video production, was changing all the time. The accessibility of these cameras, the Canon Mark II, which changed everything. It was hard to plan anything really. I never wanted to own a business per se. I just liked video work. So really coming from wanting to do film and making short films and stuff, I guess that's where it started. And when the reality of kind of doing corporate work and commercial work and music videos and stuff, I think we were both quite flexible in our career paths and understanding that this is pretty cool. Like we can get our creativity out in this way.
So you basically moved from project to project as like a starting point, because I agree with you that time around 2012 to 2014, that was roughly around the time that Dario and I also started. And I remember everything was completely changing, every few weeks or so, there would be a new camera, a new light, a new tutorial, constantly shifting. So it's hard to plan, obviously, but because we were also starting out, we were also just learning as we went, right? All it was from one project to the next, to the next, to the next. But obviously, after a while, we have to think to ourselves, okay, how do we plan going forward? So how long did it take for you guys to get to that point?
to get to like a legitimate company, I guess is what you mean.
The mindset more so as well, because it's one thing to incorporate a business. It's another thing to also start treating it like a business, right?
Yeah. I would say we're still learning that very much now. This is actually quite funny. So Brett's wife was doing her MBA program last year, and she, as their final project, they had to pick a company and do like a business evaluation and business plan for them. So she suggested doing us, and we were quite hesitant. Like, we're not like really a real business here. Like, are you sure you're going to get all the information that you guys need? Like, is this going to be a legitimate thing for you guys to do? We're so tiny. We're just kind of, it almost still feels like we're freelancers in a way. But it was interesting. Like, they went in and did an evaluation and audit basically of how we operate in our business. And a lot of it, we came out with like a huge amount of knowledge of in a third party looking at how we actually operate. And a lot of it, we didn't go to a business school. So, it was just filing away, and all of our information's on Dropbox, and we somehow organically created structures and stuff to operate and not go under as of yet. But, the amount of suggestions and stuff that they've given us to operate and set goals and, kind of just structure it in a far more efficient way has been super interesting. So I would say, even now we're learning so much about structuring it properly. But it probably wasn't from 2014, I would say, to maybe 2017, 18, when we were actually getting a full year's worth of work, is when it was like, oh, this is legitimate. Let's make some plans and kind of go full bore on this thing.
It makes sense that you guys had to structure it in a way where it would be self-sustaining, because if you are getting to the point where you're getting work and it's filling up your whole year's timetable, if you're just if you got your head in the clouds, it's just not going to become sustainable, right? And it's just going to fall like apart, right? So it makes sense that you guys were able to kind of form like systems in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
What would you say some of the most important systems have been that you guys have developed for your business?
I mean, it's simple, but kind of just, we knew what we were good at, I think, at the beginning. And it was like, I think it was client relations. It was being very real with people. And I mean, in that way, that was almost a system. We knew how we were coming off, and we knew what our positives were. So it was kind of developing, and maybe unsaid, just how we dealt with clients and what the kind of review process would be like with them, how we follow up with them, in terms of, I guess, structures. It was keeping, making on Dropbox, like just categorizing everything as much as we could, saving projects and outputs and archiving everything we needed to. That was the big thing. And just being like, I guess, super conscientious and not crazy creatives. Like, I'm quite conservative in just, I don't know, making sure everything's clean and put away and in the right place and stuff. So I guess that's how we worked together and organized it.
Yeah, we're running kind of into an issue lately where we have to just get on top of our organizational skills. I feel like we don't even use Dropbox, we use Google Drive, and sometimes like that folder gets so messy and we have to create subfolders within subfolders, and then sometimes we can't find stuff, and it's because it's just a mess. But yeah, it's good that you're keeping on top of that, because it can get out of hand very easily, especially once the workload increases.
You have to do audits. You have to do audits of it every now and then, in terms of your internal systems, how efficient it is after a while, because we had a few systems where it's like, okay, we could do Lapse 2.0, Lapse 3.0 in terms of different ideas that we have. And then we realized about a week ago, okay, we got to consolidate everything a little bit more, keep it as bare bones as possible. So we did that. And now obviously after a few months where it's probably going to get a little bit more disorganized again, with all the other things that we throw in there. One thing that I thought was interesting though, because you don't have a business background, how interesting did it seem for you to look at your business from an outside perspective, how other people viewed your business? Because we as entrepreneurs don't always get such a structured view of our business from other people, just little comments in passing, things like that. Any of us would typically get, but you got a whole audit. And how did you judge your business based on seeing what that audit was like?
I think it was, in a lot of ways, it upped our confidence just to see how we're being perceived. Most people, take a look at your website and Vimeo, see a bit of a demo reel, and you get a pretty good, I think people's opinions are formed, immediately through that. And you can never, it's so hard to look at your own website and not see its faults and what it's missing. At the same time, I guess contradictory, you'll look at it and go like, well, I think that's saying everything that we need it to say. So I think seeing it from their perspective, like I said, some things it looks like we were doing well, like, with stuff like, yeah, look at these great Google reviews. That's a big thing to have on there. And just seeing, I guess, getting feedback on the work again and the testimonials and all this great stuff. So, but what's missing is also a gargantuan amount of just, I guess, goal planning and kind of where this thing's going. And really the numbers, like, obviously we were saying we got a full edit. So it was looking at our competitors and how they quote versus how we quote and invoice and, all that stuff about markups and not marking up. Like, we were doing it quite haphazardly in a way. We have our rates and, we want to stick to them, but we're quite flexible. And that's basically how you run it. Like, you're just trying to get work like that. And eventually, we've put together these structures. But yeah, what did I learn from it? How much we still need to do, and some of the stuff that has worked, keep on doing it.
What is like one of the first ones? What is the first thing that you think you might have to do after that, or after you had that happen? What was the first thing that you tackled?
The biggest thing was probably getting on a system to do invoices and quoting a bit differently. Like, we would just do it through Excel and, keep them on Dropbox. It was not being recorded on any sort of internal system. And hours and stuff as well was really hard to record accurately. We were doing it in our heads, or you write it down and kind of you're getting in that zone. But like, that was probably the biggest thing. So you guys need a system that you're recording like more accurately everything that you're doing, and a quoting and invoice system that's not just Excel. That was the biggest thing.
We were doing our invoices manually too at the beginning. Then we switched over to Wave Accounting.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, that thing is an amazing piece of software.
Went from Photoshop.
Yeah,
we were doing it in Photoshop before.
Awful, man. Kyrill was like, I was like, Kyrill, we need this invoice. He's like, oh, it takes a while. Give me a second. I'm like, come on, I need it right now. He's like, okay, you try it. He sent me the Photoshop file, and I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this.
Because we were trying to make it fancy at the time, and then we had this discussion where we were thinking to ourselves, who are we trying to be fancy for with the invoices? They're accountants. They're not gonna care.
They're numbers people. Who cares? So we went online and we found Wave, and we've been using it since the beginning. That thing is,
it's amazing.
Yeah, that's just it. That it was the exact same thing. We're all worried about how it came off and the logo and stuff. But like you said, they really just care about the number at the end, really. So just make sure you're categorizing it and recording it properly.
So in terms of, let's go to your team structure. Right now is just the Bretts, so you and Brett number two. Is it just you guys? Do you guys have like other people on payroll, or?
We have, one. We hired someone in January, Haley, who is awesome. She's kind of our project manager, production coordinator. And we had her on doing contract work through October when a couple of big projects came up. And she has experience doing some producing for TV, and she was kind of fresh out of school as well. So like super eager to do everything. So anyway, she is now part of the team, and we're not going to give her the honorary Brett title. She'll be her own person. So it is us three now, which is like, it's been such a difference. It's unreal. Just the amount of stuff that you realize that, we had to do internally, like a lot of the bookkeeping and all that. Haley is kind of a jack of all trades. She's jumping into everything, doing Instagram and little edits there, and producing and bookkeeping and admin work and everything. So it's us three. And then of course on bigger projects, we've got a whole, community here that that's quite strong, and we all use each other for different projects and bring people on, kind of expand and contract.
It's good that you guys brought her on via contract work at first, so you guys can see how well you two worked together before you brought her on for a more permanent role. That's a really good way of going about it. In terms of like what you and Brett do, is everything kind of split down the middle with you guys, like, or does one person focus more on like the business side of things and the other person more on the creative?
It's split down the middle, basically. We have our strengths. I probably do maybe a bit more just straight editing. Brett does, a lot of the design and motion graphics work that we do. But yeah, other than that, like we run it just straight. We do the same things, basically, kind of produce and direct on bigger projects. Like the biggest thing actually that I guess was a unique thing, and maybe you guys do the same thing, is that we co-direct projects. And this, even now, like that's quite, I think, unique for crews to understand, or clients. It'll be like, oh, who's directing it and who's producing it. We just found that, especially on big corporate stuff or commercial stuff, there's so much for one like director to do that we can kind of split it up, and we have such a shorthand and back and forth that, you got to be on the day involved in the vision as it's happening. At the same time, there's all this external, you got to talk to the client or talk about getting food for lunch or whatever. And we're just kind of like passing back and forth off of each other. So that's kind of how we direct on set, is together.
That's very similar to us as well. Like we've developed this kind of like fusion mix of co-directing and almost co-producing at the same time. Because like you said, well, actually you said like on bigger sets, it's harder, but I find that on smaller sets, it's almost harder. And those roles have to kind of intermix with each other, because again, it's not unionized, so you don't have one person doing one specific job on that set. It's kind of like everyone has to kind of wear multiple hats. And like, let's say if you have freelancers on board, like they all have their own roles that they're doing. But like for us, since we're running the whole gig, like we do have to produce it, direct it, sometimes be like the cinematographer in terms of like, okay, like, no, this is kind of not the vision we have in mind, has to be a little bit more in line with that. But it's interesting to hear that you guys are also co-directing it, because to date, like I like Kyrill and I are one of the few companies that we knew that are doing that. But it's good to know that there's another company out there that's also doing it, and it's also good to know that it is working, right? Because normally when you think of co-directors, there's normally not a lot of co-directors out there, right? Otherwise, you'd see big names up there, but usually you don't. It's always that one person, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, it's because it doesn't typically work. And in terms of, aside from the companies that within our network, as Dario mentioned, you're probably the only other company that we know that does this very similar approach. And even out there in the creative world, I've looked at the work of hundreds of directors and cinematographers over the years, and the only one that comes to name that has a kind of co-directing style is this are these two brothers, I think, called the Twin Towers. That I remembered. I haven't seen their work in a little while, but I remember they had really striking work that was really interesting. And I thought, okay, this is the only other, in a way, case study that I found that is where this potentially does work. So it's not that it's impossible, but it's very dependent on the relationship you have with the other person, you know, whether it's family or close friends who've been working together for years, like our two companies, or people who might seem like family but are actually just friends, you know, the Bretts.
Well, it makes sense in these circumstances because it's like, okay, if you guys are both running the business and you start off as videographers, move into running a video production company, if the chemistry is right and like you guys both want to take up that mantle piece, it makes sense that co-directors would come out of that situation, right? Whereas like I feel like, yeah, in other situations it'd be rare.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope it gets more accepted and it's more understandable, especially for creative agencies where a lot of it, like optically, is, oh, you know, who are they getting to direct? You know, yeah, just hopefully they become more accepting of it and understanding that, you know, maybe getting two people, if it works, is going to be a stronger vision. Like a lot of directing, I think, has to do with confidence or perceived confidence, and just saying, yes, yeah, that makes sense, and do it this way and do it that way, even if you don't know if that's the right approach to take. You just kind of have to go one way or the other. But I think with two people, you can be quite honest with each other, having a quick creative discussion, and also just getting different options, you know, and contradicting each other is completely fine too. Yeah, it just seems like it's always seemed like a weird thing for one person, a weird job for one person to have in a lot of scenarios.
I was just curious about like because you mentioned with creative partners like agencies, right? Like ad agencies, because we don't really do like much, if any, work with ad agencies anymore. Like, but it sounds like you do. So I'm wondering, do you pitch the co-directing thing, or in those situations, do you guys just go like, okay, just one of us will go do it?
We don't work a lot with them, but you know, we have a bit in the past, and of course are wanting to work with them more. And that's been actually a big question. The times that we've worked with creative and marketing agencies, some of the projects have been smaller, so they don't really, the optics thing is not there, so it's just going out and shooting a small corporate. But you're working with them, they're the creative, and you're kind of facilitating just the shooting. In that case, they don't seem to care who's actually doing it or directing it and stuff. But there is a bit of confusion. Like, for instance, we just had a meeting the other week, and you know, the question came up, who's on your director's reel, who's on your director's list? And you know, we did explain to them the co-director thing. That's what we kind of generally do, but we can also bring in people. But it is still pretty foreign to them, I think, that aspect. And we're trying to, right now, we're kind of in the middle of doing a website revamp and getting a new design and everything. Is how we're going to advertise ourselves on the site. Is it, really blatantly put it out there that we're co-directors or we're separate directors? It is a question that we're asking ourselves right now, kind of specifically to advertise for the creative agencies that have perhaps a more older view of the structure of like a film set.
It all depends on the type of work that's coming in and the people that you're typically collaborating with. For Dario and I, for example, all the projects that we work on or pitch on, the clients are always curious about the idea, the project, how it will be executed, and they come to Lapse, for example, for the team. That's how we always pitch it. We makeshift. We mentioned, you know, like it's going to be Dario and I leading the project, and we have our team of people that we bring in based on what the needs of the project is. That's how we've always structured it. Never has there been a question of who is directing, who is cinematography, who is doing that. They don't care as long as the end result is what they want. Whatever we, in terms of who's putting it together, as long as they basically come to us because they trust us, and that's the type of work that we do. Whereas for you guys, I guess because you work with a lot of those types of clients, agencies, and companies, because they have that type of view, you have to adjust your business model in a way to kind of help facilitate that as well. So it's all about adapting, essentially, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's just it, you know. And yes, sticking to that. That sounds, you know, perfect. That's how it should be. I think is that they trust you to execute however you want to do it. Totally. But yeah, you do have to work within their structure sometimes, or speak the same language as they do.
Well, the reason is because you're essentially working with, for example, if you're working with an ad agency, they're the ones that are client facing, right? The client with them doesn't really care who's getting the work done, right? In a way, Dario and I are just cutting out the agency in a way by working directly with the client. Whereas if you're working with a production or with an advertising agency, they're going to be a little bit more picky in terms of who they bring on for these certain projects, because they have a certain vision. They want to make sure the people that come on board can help execute that vision. I mean, we all do that ourselves with the people that we hire, you know, shooters, DPs, editors, especially, to make sure that they have the capabilities to execute that particular vision or video product. So that's essentially why it is what it is like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great point. Yeah, they want.
I kind of get it though, because it's like, imagine if you hire like a
Yep.
DP and he brings on like a second shooter, but then between them it's a shared role. Like I feel like I would be confused on my end. No,
Depending.
Does it make sense though? Like just think about it. I kind of get why now they just want one.
I think I put it best though, where it really depends on in what role, in what chain of the production you are. You know, if you're the production company, then there's an advertising agency between you and the client. There's going to be more of that type of buffer. You know, at the same time, if I bring on an audio operator, I'm not going to be questioning the exact brand of every little tool that he's using, as long as he is able to, as long as I'm able to let him know what type of audio we need to record, the amount of people that there are. Then if they say they can do it, they can handle it, take care of it. Great. That's all I need. You know, it all depends, obviously, right?
Yeah. And of course, they don't want to pay two people for one role. I mean, that's probably.
I think that's the source of it all. It all comes down to money, right? If they think, oh, there's two, so do I have to pay double?
Yeah, truly. Yeah. It's funny how, you know, there's all these questions about how you present yourself and advertise yourself in your services. And
wait, so do you guys like charge twice, like the rate as like a team thing, or how does that work?
We do have our own individual charges. Again, usually we're also like, there would be like one less producer. So
okay, that makes sense.
Sometimes we do break it up on a quote, say director, producer, but on set we're directing it.
That's exactly what we do.
That's what we do. We have producer director, we have producer / director, and then it's director / cinematographer.
Yeah,
that's how we split it up.
It's just for us. The client doesn't care. They're paying the same amount. They're paying the same amount, but you know, to us, it's like, okay, we know our own roles with the project. Oh, one thing I noticed that was pretty interesting on your website that I haven't seen any other company do yet.
The
right
TikTok
here,
thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Your visual content studio for everything except TikTok. Tell us the backstory of that.
Well, that was put on some time ago before I didn't realize how big TikTok would
Yeah.
be. Literally, we're now doing videos that I think have been put up on TikTok. So
Whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
We didn't really know
it's
too much about TikTok. Like we didn't really dive too deep into it until we restarted the podcast this year, and I was like, okay,
Still
we gotta
haven't.
start.
We still haven't.
No, we started posting regularly. We get quite a bit of hits on that actually. It's kind of
Oh, yeah.
wild. Like, yeah. Like we've been posting just highlight clips on there because we started posting on Instagram Reels. And then when I looked into Reels, I was like, wait a minute, this is just a copycat of TikTok. Then I
Basically.
checked out TikTok, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of dope.
I've noticed he's started to share videos from TikTok a lot lately. I'm like, oh no, it's happened. Once Dario gets into something, he goes full steam
It's pretty
ahead
cool,
with
man.
it.
Like the suggestions are a lot better than on Instagram. So now I'm kind of trying to talk like our friends group into into joining it because I always have to share the link. So I gotta copy the link and then go to WhatsApp and post it there instead of just directly sending it over there.
Well,
Why resist, Brett? Why resist?
Yeah, I mean, it does bring up a pretty good point. Like, it's actually kind of ignorant for us to put it on there because, you never know like where video is going and the value and where that value is going to be placed. So, you have to be adaptable to whatever the distribution models are, and they're changing all the time. So yeah, I say that, but at the same time, we're doing YouTube pre-roll, commercials and clips and stuff now. So it's important to understand, what all these new apps and stuff that come out and how they're delivering video and what's gaining a bunch of traction there. Because at the end of the day, your clients are using those and they want to, they don't want to be behind, and you got to keep up with the trend, I guess.
Well, the other thing too is that all these platforms just copy each other. So before you know it, you might not like TikTok, but Instagram copied it. And then as soon as you post a reel on Instagram, you can cross post it onto Facebook. So now you got that happening on two platforms. And then YouTube also did YouTube Shorts. So boom, there's another one. Then you can also post the same TikTok video on YouTube as its own thing. It'll just post like it will be on TikTok. Like they all like just copy each other. So before you know it, it's like everyone's just using the same stuff. But I get it. I totally hated the vertical video until I realized, you know what? I watch most of my content is on my phone, which means it's all vertical content. So as much as I hate it, I get why it's so popular. And to be honest, it's a lot more convenient when you're just scrolling on your phone, right? As much as I hate it as like, cinematographer, director, all that jazz, like I hate 9x16, but it's also very convenient.
but here's the good thing though, is that what people don't realize is that if you're already creating the content for one of those platforms, like you mentioned, Dario, because everyone's copying each other, it's like getting a video and you're able to post it on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn or whatever, with the 16:9. But now that it's 9x16, there's, as you said, Instagram Shorts, YouTube, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. If you've created for one platform, you've created for all of them. So it's not like you have to think too much extra about those particular platforms. Yes, obviously there's different audiences, so you might have to think like that. But at the same time, if you want to create content that is evergreen and can go on to different platforms like that, you still can, which is the benefit now.
Well, we don't have to think about that at all because we're not really marketing the content. It becomes a pain in our asses because we have to shoot it, not just in 16:9, but now we also got to, go into the camera settings, figure out where the marker section is, and then do 9x16. And then now it becomes a matter of, do we have enough time to shoot the regular 16:9 and 9x16?
Or we just simply do this.
Yeah, but you just doubled the amount of time it takes to shoot content, right?
I know.
That's the thing I don't think anyone's figured out yet. It's like, okay, if you're on a timed, like if you don't have that much time, like how do you do it? Like you're gonna have to just compromise and then just frame it in this weird way where you could use it both as 16:9 and 9x16, which I hate because it's always like the weirdest type of framing you have to do. And then sometimes when you're looking at it, you get confused for a moment. You have to add those like, the safe safety markers. You got to darken those all the way. So it's like, okay, I'm specifically shooting this way.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's funny. Like technology just dictates a lot of what we end up, you know, having to do. The technology fits us into the content in a way, or the, you know, the barriers of how we shoot the content. But yeah, if that's, yeah, it makes sense, you know, portrait video a lot of the time. I mean, now our minds, like, it just takes a while to adapt to different things. I mean, now when we talk to clients, and this is the thing that's, you know, only a couple years old for us, we will, if they say we want a 5-minute edit of this or a 2-minute edit of that, and they don't say initially that they want social edits or the tiny smaller edits, we'll just suggest that to them because they'll want them at some point. So we always kind of, as a package, almost kind of go like, yeah, like also think about these edits as well, because it'll be awesome for you guys to have that.
We're starting to incorporate that in our packages as well. So like it'll be in the whatever package is above the basic one. We'll also include like a social media package. So yeah, it'll have like 9:16 edits or cuts of the videos, right? Or shorter versions of them for in case they want to market them on YouTube, right? Like 5, 15, 30-second ones, right? Because we didn't have those before, and like sometimes we were kind of like, I don't think we even brought it up. It was kind of like if they wanted it, but now we're just going to start
Then they would
including
ask,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it also makes sense when we're beefing up the packages. Yeah, it makes sense when we're trying to beef up our packages, right? So just to distinguish them one from the other, it seems like a good way to do it.
Yeah, it all depends on the client and their needs. You know, obviously, if it's an internal type project, they may not necessarily
It doesn't make
need the
sense. Yeah,
social
but for
media
anything
package.
that's outbound, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually curious how this is going to play with a lot of branded documentary type projects specifically, because those are still big favorites for a lot of companies. And I noticed that you guys do quite a bit of those as well. I've seen you've done one for Sport Check and a few other companies as well. So I'm curious how that's going to shift into the 9:16 form, because they're long stories. They're not necessarily, you know, little short bite-sized bits, but you know.
Well, it's easy. You just shorten the story, Kyrill. The attention spans are not that long.
I know,
like you can
but
have
what
the
I mean
short
is
cut and the long cut.
What I mean is, like, is there going to be that same value for them being shorter than compared to them being longer over the long term? I'm just curious to see kind of where it goes or how it develops over the next few years because of the shift in the platforms, right? That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I think content is getting both longer than it's ever been and shorter than it's ever been at the same time. The question of value, I think, you know, on a branded documentary, I think the value does cheapen and lessen the, you know, making these short little edits, but I guess it's working as a teaser for the larger thing. That's great. At the end of the day, I think they just want content. Content is big, you know, getting eyes on logos and directing you to a longer piece of content. But yeah, like I'm sure you guys know, when you're filming these kind of larger stories, or a corporate story or a profile story, these documentaries, you know, you cut it down so much, even, you know, you this 2-hour long interview and you cut it down to 5 minutes, you know, it's a lot of cliff notes and about their actual story anyways. It takes a lot to make it feel complete and kind of this worthwhile emotional journey. So yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but even those are tough to do. Even, you know, taking these big stories and making them 5 minutes, like you're just losing so much. But at the same time, you know, apparently people don't want to be watching something so long.
Well, who has the time, right? Like even everyone's time is limited. It's like, okay, I don't have time to watch like a 20-minute video. And then like, as if I do that, I use up all my free time, right? So it makes sense that like you said, well, you can have like the teaser for the long version, right? That's the best way to do it. Because it's like, yeah, okay, you can keep making long form content with no shorter versions of it. But if you don't get eyes on it, A, you won't get money to do it a second time, and B, it'll never happen again. Like if you look at all these, you got to look at all these platforms, like TikTok, for example. The maximum length of a video is 3 minutes. What does that mean? That means that based on their research, no one is going to watch it past the 3 minute mark. And I think if you look at their statistics, the sweet spot is the 1 to 2 minute angle, right? So based on their research, if their research suggested that, hey, you know what? Everyone loves long form content, they would have raised the time limit to 5-10 minutes, right? But if they keep it at max 3 minutes, that tells you everything right there. Like, I mean, these are like billion-dollar companies, so they have like a lot of money at their disposal to do this research, right? If you look at a company like Facebook, they leave their reels limit at 1 minute. So that tells you right there, based on their research, no one's going to watch it past 1 minute, right? But
They've
again,
created
like,
the borders. They've created the borders for us to work within,
well,
right?
no, it's,
That's
I don't
essentially
think,
it.
I don't, no, I wouldn't say it's them. I would say it's the research they
Well,
did. So
yeah.
then it's basically, they're just telling us, hey, if you want to get a lot of eyes on this, follow this format, right? Because it's not really them. They go based on their research. It's not like they're making numbers up in the air, right? But I guess that what that says to us is that as, storytellers, we have to get really good at just being able to tell a story within that time frame.
Yeah, or make something flashy at least, or eye catching or poppy. There is, yeah. I do wonder in 5 years, say, what does TikTok look like? Are people going to get more relaxed and want to watch something longer? I think maybe it's the medium length that people don't want to deal with. I mean, it's really easy to watch something, say it must be like up to a minute, or that's a maximum. You'll watch something for a minute, or you'll watch something for 1,000 minutes, but you can't watch something for 20 minutes. The movies are getting longer, TV series, you just want to watch it so long, and you want to listen to podcasts that are 3 hours, whatever. But it's that medium length that, although maybe it works better for a documentary, we actually can't play with it because I guess no one's going to watch it for 20 minutes.
The other thing I wanted to quickly touch upon was because you guys have already worked on some branded documentary type projects, how did that conversation go with the client in particular? Did they come to you with the story, or did they come to you with a need for basically a particular need that they wanted video to solve, and then you helped them find the stories for this and you pitched a branded documentary to them? How did that go?
For the few that we've done, we certainly haven't straight up pitched the idea. I mean, Sport Check was different, as in they had this series going already. So that was like working with kind of their creative teams. They're kind of their own creative agency in a way. And we worked in executing their vision. Having said that, like, we had a huge leeway in what we were capturing, where we were going, what we were doing, the interview, we gave, and we edited it, like, had very little direction actually in what the final product would be. So it was almost more reactive. You get the idea, and then we give you what we made. And there was a bunch of leeway there. I think they're just quite popular because they cover, I mean, doing profile documentaries on people, a lot of companies, it's almost like a testimonial, right? Like, there's a lot of, you can do them on employees in the company or clients that they've had. They're like larger testimonials in a way, and everyone has a story. So we've done a few with a credit union that we work with. It's a big client of ours in Calgary. So they have a lot of wonderful like bank members who have these crazy stories about opening up businesses. They have a lot of farmers as their clients and stuff, and they have like amazing stories. So they kind of came to us and gave us some names and some people who might work well in this structure. And we, from there, just kind of work with them and meet the people and do location scouts and kind of do pre-interviews and stuff like this.
I, I like how you put it, that essentially these branded documentaries are essentially more structured testimonials, you know, with a little bit more substance, because obviously all of us have done testimonial videos. Everyone in this industry has done it at this point, and it's all around the same structure of why did you work with this company? Why did you do this? How did they help you solve the problem? Which is important. You know, we all need testimonials in any business, you know, just to show other potential leads of what the company can do. But doing it in this format kind of allows you to connect more with the people in it rather than it being very straightforward. And I think that's a very interesting perspective to kind of portray and put it for other people to understand.
Yeah, that's totally what they are, right? And if you make them cinematic, and if people have great stories, and you can, in a time limit, you know, structure something that's like really emotional and impactful, that's awesome. I mean, I like watching profile documentaries. A lot of companies are doing them now, so it's great.
Well, it's because they one thing that sometimes is being shown is the conflict and the challenges that a lot of these people need to overcome, and that is essentially what people love to see. I mean, if we look at any of them, some really big movies or anything that happens, you know, with a drama series, there's always a type of conflict that a character needs to overcome, and that's what a lot of audiences are drawn to. And essentially, we're showcasing that in these documentary testimonials, as you put it, right? Rather than it being very straight to the point. This was our problem. This was solved. Thank you for solving it. That's essentially what a testimonial video is. But with a story behind it, these elements are sprinkled in a way for the audience to naturally view and experience as well, as if they also went through that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. That they can be far more effective, I think.
Definitely. So I'm just curious to see how that will translate over the years through TikTok, as I mentioned before.
Just got to make it shorter. Just got to make it shorter. Get to the point.
It's like, oh, look at that. Isn't that cute? Next video. Oh, nope. Next. All that work for a quick swipe, right?
It is funny, yeah.
And don't forget, all the first 3 seconds already count as a view. So
yeah, exactly.
Is that the most important thing or what?
Oh man. Okay. Well, Brett, before we head off, why don't you tell us where you guys got the name?
Ooh, good question. Actually, I think Brett just gave a story. Let me open up an email. So I'll say it verbatim what he said.
He wrote it so perfectly.
He wrote it. You know what? Honestly, we were like, it was probably 2013. And we literally almost came to it at exactly the same moment, from what I remember. We always liked the idea of, maybe it's pretentious, but video or film was like painting with light.
I like that.
Famous quote. So we just had that in our minds. And then Factory, I don't know, is very like definitely cool hipster at the time. I think we're probably seeing influences like the Beer Factory or whatever. And we both kind of wrote down the light factory.
I like
so.
That.
Yeah, that's how we got. So yeah, it's the whole painting with light thing. But again, I don't think most people know us literally as Brett's, or they'll say Lighthouse, the Lighthouse.
How did they get Lighthouse?
The Brett Lighthouse.
They just
there you go.
They can't remember our name, I think, and they think it's light, and then I think your brain just goes like lighthouse. You know, they're like filming something, lighthouse.
Now here's a question to kind of, maybe this might be a question that throws a wrench into the business a little bit. Does that maybe tell you something about what you may need to do with the name if people are having trouble remembering it?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of talking about that right now. I think we're going to drop the a la Facebook.
But what about the whole, you know, since they code direct, actually going to the Bretts would work out pretty well.
Yeah, that's the very memorable thing that you just pointed out to us. You know, at least as if you don't mind, our perspective is that you're telling us that everyone is mentioning that they remember you as the Bretts. Is that maybe something around that you guys should maybe explore or not?
Yeah, like again, we've been kind of talking about all that, and it's interesting because you ask yourself who you're advertising to, and you don't want to come off as too small, I guess, in a way. So, it's kind of contradictory information, but you hear you need to be yourself, and people really love you guys. So kind of, be yourself and kind of show who you are and be really personable and, talking kind of first person on the website. At the same time, you don't want to feel like you're just this kind of small crew who can't do these bigger projects. So do you hide yourself a bit more on the site?
There's a balance. It's hard to find that balance because I feel like everyone in this industry flip-flops from that, especially when you're starting out. The first thing you want to do is make yourself seem a little bit bigger than you are. I remember the first year that we were going into business, every client that we got, we really put that front and center as like, here is the work that we have done. Here are the projects. Our team is very, very experienced and we know what we're doing. But obviously, then over time, you also want to show who is behind the business, and personality is key. You'd also don't want to be another, you don't want to be another kind of
faceless company,
faceless and baseless company, that not having really something to you that distinguishes you, because at the same time everyone can create video, but what distinguishes you from other people? It's not necessarily the work, because yes, that is one way to do it, but what is it that creates the work? Who is behind the work that is able to produce that type of project? And you have to showcase that. And from what we see right now, you guys are doing that, which is great. And continue what you're doing with that.
I would caution you though, because be careful with the SEO end of things, because if you do just abandon the light factory, you're gonna have to start from scratch with the breadths. So you got a long journey ahead of you if you're gonna make that change.
There's a lot of breadths out there too. I don't know if we want to compete with all this.
Yeah. I would say
if you get a third.
Look, at this point, you've solidified your SEO standing. I would say, like, careful not to lose it, man.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
If they find a third, they can call themselves the triple Brett.
Triple threat.
Triple threat.
So dumb, Kyrill.
Sorry, just
we only specialize in TikTok videos at that point.
Exactly. Maybe a separate company just for TikTok, right?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Okay, well, Brett, thank you so much for taking the time to come on our podcast, and we'll reach out to you sometime in the future to see where you are at, see what you decided on the name.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. This was super fun.